Hey there, internet people. So if you watched part 1, you saw me make this upper panel, which I am completely happy with. I love the way that this turned out. Now part 2 is going to be making the panel that fits down over this part. I started laying some of it out, and there's a lot happening here with braces and pieces coming off here and all that. So what I originally, last night I started laying out a piece, and I tried making one piece for the bottom here. I was going to have it right around this part become a second piece, so it would have two pieces that would make this. And I cut this piece out, and it was absolutely impossible to get it in here with everything that's in the way. So what I'm going to end up doing is taking this bottom panel, slitting it down the middle, and making it 2 panels, and then I think I can still get 1 panel for the top. So that's my plan at this point. However, last night also, when I was trying to squeeze this piece in, I realized in some of the areas here where I'm going to have to be drilling and tapping for my fasteners, I'm going to have to take off all of this front suspension. There's no way I'll be able to get the work done with all this stuff on. So first thing I'm going to do here is rip off all the front suspension, which won't be too tough because it's all just kind of in here in a mock-up state right now. So I can rip it all apart in about 30 minutes. And then we'll get working on fabricating the panels. Okay everybody, here's where we're at on these paneling now. These are the panels that are going to go on the bottom portion of the front of the bulkhead. Originally this is what I wanted as 1 piece, but I found out I could not get it in there. So I cut it in half. I've sized it up there a couple times. I've notched everything back. This is the final panel. They're cut in half. I've punched and chamfered all the holes for my attaching screws, and now I'm going to set it up there, vice grip it in place. I'm going to mark the holes, and then I'm going to drill them, tap them, and I'm going to take you through as I do that. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put the panels up there, then I'm going to use my scratch awl to mark the holes. I'm going to use a sharp center point to mark the center of the holes. Then I'm going to use a small 1/8" drill bit to drill in the center of the punch mark. This is a drill bit that I use specifically just for doing this. I don't use it for anything else, and whenever I'm at the hardware store, I buy a new one because this has to be very sharp in order to drill without wandering. If this is a dull bit, when you try and drill, it's going to wander. When I do drill this pilot hole, I don't use any oil. The reason that I don't use any oil is because if I put oil on this bit, when I'm drilling into the area where I've got the center punch, it's hard to tell if it's got a drip of oil around it if I'm wandering. Because if I am wandering a little bit with this bit, I can actually make up for it a little bit. So I don't use any oil with this. Once I have the pilot hole drilled, I'll drill it with this. This is a drill bit that's the proper size for a 10-30 seconds tap. With this drill bit, I'm not worried about keeping it center anymore, so with this one I will use oil. So once I have that one drilled, then I'll tap it. I'll tap it and drill that hole using oil. This is just 10W30 motor oil, it's nothing fancy. Once I tap it, I will lightly touch it with this larger drill bit. The only reason I'm doing this is to give it a chamfer or to give it a smooth finish so that there's no rise from the tapping at all. Those are the 10-30 second screws. And this is my cordless drill that I'm going to do it all with. So let's do that right now. All right, guys, let's center punch, drill, and tap this hole. So I'm gonna take my center punch here. I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a hole marked there from when I had the aluminum panel marked up there. So the first thing I always do, and this is a pretty sharp center punch, is I put it on what I think is center. Now, in order to check whether this is center, first thing I do is rotate it to the side, and then I'll spin the center punch without taking the point off. I'm not rotating it far enough that the point leaves the metal. Then I rotate it till it's center. Then I stand it up, and then while keeping pressure on it, I rotate it 90 degrees the other way, still keeping the tip on the metal. I'm not taking the tip off the metal. Then I rotate it again, and I'll do this a couple of times until I feel like I have it centered. That's the best way for me to get it centered as much as possible. Once I think I've got it centered, I'll hold it there and give it a tap. Not very hard, I'm not wailing it, and even with that, I can see my hole is not center. It's not actually all that center, but that's okay. I can work with that. Now I've got my cordless drill set up with the 1/8 inch pilot bit. I'm not going to use any oil on this. I'm going to get it in the center of my prick mark. Now, just so you know, sometimes it helps a little bit if you run a file over the top of that little prick mark, because that prick mark does actually make it raises the sides a little bit. That's hard to explain, but and that will give your drill bit a little bit of a tendency to wander. Sometimes you can hit it with a file and smooth that out a little bit. If I'm doing that on metal that's a little bit easier to do that to, I will do that. On this piece of metal, which is a 1x2, you'll actually find out that this is not a completely flat surface, and usually you'll have to grind away a little bit on the edges before you'll get to the center there. So usually in a situation like this, I won't file it. I'll just be careful when I start my pilot hole. Now, the reason I'm not using oil here is because this prick mark is not 100% on center, but I have a circle scribed so I know where I want to be. So what I'm going to do is when I put my drill on here and when I start rotating it, I'm going to actually push it ever so slightly to the side in the direction that I want to go, and I'll probably lean the drill bit a little bit a couple of times just as I'm starting to drill on the surface, and this will actually push that hole a little bit in the direction I want it to go. I can tell I want to go that way a little bit, so I'm going to favor it in that direction a little bit. Ever so slightly, I'm just putting a little bit of sideways pressure. Now I'm going to take the drill off, look again. I did carry it over a little bit. I want to favor it a little bit more. And that's about it. I really can't get any more than that because you can only go so far. Once you start drilling so far in there, there's nothing you can do about it. So now it's just important that I keep my speed constant and I have light pressure on it, pushing in a straight manner. Now at this point, I just basically let the drill bit do its thing. Now, you probably can't see this. It's pretty damn close. It's not perfect, but it's within a 32nd of being perfectly on there, and that's workable. I don't have any problem with that. Not like I have a choice anyways. The next drill bit I'm putting in is the drill bit that I need for the size of that 10/32 tap. Putting a little drop of oil on it. And I'm gonna put a little drop of oil on the hole there. I don't necessarily have to see the circle that I scribed anymore because I'm not worried about the center anymore. Now I'm just gonna drill this through again, going straight with constant pressure. And it's through. Now I'm switching to my tap. Here's the tap. I'm gonna put some oil on the tap for sure. Now, let's see if I can tap this with my left hand because the camera's in my way a little bit, but that's all right. This is a pretty simple hole. I got this hand just trying to keep it steady because this is a small tap going into fairly thin metal. So if I let it wander too much, the taps won't bite, and this will be a garbage hole. But now it's biting. It's digging in, so I'm just gonna rotate this around enough until I feel it's gone all the way through, which it has now. It's not cutting anymore, it's just walking through. Now I want to back it out. When I back it out, I once again grab a hold of it because right when you get to the point where it's about to come out, it will get very weak again, and if you pull it to the side, it's going to booger up the first couple of threads. All right, now that's out. Now you can give it a little wipe, but it's very rough, very rough. If you bolted the aluminum over that, this crud here would actually hold the aluminum panel up a little bit, and you wouldn't get a real flush finish. So what I do is I just grab a drill bit. Doesn't matter what size it is, as long as it's significantly larger than the hole that you tapped. All you want to do is give this a little spin. That's all you got to do. And all it did was chamfer that hole. So now that hole is really, really smooth. But at this point, if you had the other holes drilled, you could start putting your screws in, but I want to give you one other tip. A lot of times when you go to put the screw in, all right, not this one, but sometimes when you do that chamfer bit, it'll bugger up the first thread a little bit, and you need to be really careful. You don't want to cross thread anything. So if you start to put the screw in and it feels like it's not going very smoothly, run your tap through there again, because you'll probably need to clean a thread up from when you did the chamfer drill. So there you go. I'm going to now do this to the rest of the holes so that I can bolt my panels up here, and then we can start working on the upper panel. Hey guys, got the front panel done now. Let's take a look at it. I did end up going with the top panel here is all one piece. This panel is one piece. It splits down the middle here. This panel is another piece. It's pretty much like the top where it's got the 10/32 running across the top. It's got the 1/8 of an inch allowed on the edge here so there's a smooth transition. It's got this wonky penetration here for the steering column to come through. If I find that too much air comes in here or water or dirt, I'll make a rubber sleeve that goes over that so that nothing can get through there. But that's it for the front panel. So now we got the front panel, the top panel. Next thing we're going to be working on is this side panel. That, not 100% sure how I'm going to make that yet, but that will be part 3.